Your room is really dark. Of course, mine's really bright, but
My light's on, but not. I don't even think. What's up, guys? Another week. I'm here joined by special guest and friend Gabriel. Bears week coming up. We came off another devastating loss. It's been a tough couple of weeks as Bears fans, but we do have a new offensive coordinator, and our offenses look great. So it's a good time. I'm gonna fix my light real quick. Greg, how we doing?
I'm doing good. I wish we had better things to talk about, but is what it is.
Wish we were coming off a couple victories. That would feel a lot better, but
Well,
I mean, it is what it is.
Very easily could have been 2 out of 3 right there. 2 out of 4, Washington and Green Bay. Instead, New England completely outplayed the Bears, and as did Arizona. But the Washington loss and the Green Bay loss were just, to me, it was strictly coaching errors.
That's how I feel as well. I mean, it's been a tough couple of weeks as Bears fans. We've watched a Hail Mary loss. We had the Packers on the ropes last week. That one was emotional for me because I actually streamed live for that game, so I get to see how fans react during the game, in my chat.
Right.
And first quarter, everyone, we're gonna get blown out 40-0. We're gonna get blown out.
I know.
And I'm like, have some faith, guys. Let's see what Thomas Brown can do. And I had faith that whole game. And even on that last drive when we got the ball back, I was like, listen, guys, this is why we drafted Caleb Williams. We wanted a quarterback that could go down there and take the lead. And even after the 2 straight sacks, it was 3rd and 20. Half of my chat was saying, I'm turning it off. I'm done.
And then he gets a 16-yard throw and their first down throw.
Just give him a chance, guys. We got 2 more plays here. Boom. Big plays. We went down the field and scored. I think that was my biggest takeaway is what we saw from the offense and how Caleb Williams drove him down the field for the win. And that's my biggest takeaway.
How he drove them down for the win, they didn't get a win now.
Oh, well, what
you're only dreaming that
should have been a win, not actually didn't end up being a win, but what should have been a win, and we ended up losing it. But who would have thought that? I mean, that's just kind of life as a Bears fan, because it's like, listen, Cairo is so money, but we know that. But again, for me, the biggest takeaway again was a lack of situational awareness from Matt Eberflus. When he spoke after the game again, he talked about those last couple plays and running the clock out. And I get it. We don't want to give them a chance to get the ball back at the end, but he literally
could have run a couple plays and run the clock down.
And he literally said those yards didn't matter. Even though we know Cairo Santos' range is limited, yes, he can make it inside 50 yards, but 46 is still a long kick for Cairo. If you could get him inside 40, he's like 99.9%. Like,
oh, I know. I think inside of 41, he's 40 for 40 or something like that.
Yep. So if we could just get an extra 5 yards.
Well, here's the thing, and did you see GTF on Monday?
I think I missed this one actually.
Okay, well, we had Pat Manley on, and he was,
I gotta watch that. I gotta go back.
Okay, he was on for the first half hour.
Okay,
and was really terrific. And he brought up an important thing, and the media has brought it up since. And I think Pat brought it up when he was on the score too. Cairo prefers to kick from the right hash.
Yep.
Okay, so, and he's telling about his time with the Bears, most of which was with Dave Tobe as the special teams coach. Mike Sweatman was here for a while too. Mike Sweatman was a great special teams coach also. So that's a big part of your planning within the special teams. To know where the kicker, where he's going to be, where his range is, and you find out his range in the pregame warmups because the wind conditions, weather conditions, and whatever. But his preferred side, etc. So then, when you are driving to put yourself in position to tie a game, win a game, or whatever, you're kicking it from the right spot. And he goes, and so now you gotta blame the special teams coach a little bit here. Now he was a little nervous in his presser yesterday when he spoke, and he doesn't want to throw the head coach under the bus. But reading between the lines, I think he knew they should have got the ball over to the right side. Even if it's still, 46. Now, granted, the blocking wasn't great. And Pat talked about that too. He said the first thing that the guards are supposed to do is interlock their legs with the center. That closes, and they don't do that. So that is a coaching error on the special teams coach, on Hightower.
Yep. And we're getting a lot of questions in the chat about the right hash, left hash thing. And I want to specify this because we actually ran the ball to the left side on that play when Roschon just ran for no yards. We ran to the left hash. So in my mind, I assumed that is the hash that Cairo preferred. Hearing afterwards, and this makes a lot more sense because just being a right-footed kicker, if you think about anything logically, when you're kicking to the right, you'd probably want to be on that right hash to line it up and be able to kick it straight in.
Right, because number one, you always kick with a little bit of a draw. Yep. And so you've got that much more room kicking from the right hash.
And when we went, and that's just to me another huge mistake by Eberflus, because that's something he should know. And that's something that when I saw it live, I was like, I figured we would either run the ball right up the middle to try to line it up dead center, or go to the right side to try to get to the right hash. Because to me, naturally, being as someone who plays sports right-handed, I was like, I would want to kick from the right hash if I'm trying to kick a field goal. And I've never kicked a field goal before, other than like at Bears training camp and the combine and stuff. But I would want to kick it from the right side. So when I saw that, I'm like, Cairo must like the left hash. To hear he doesn't, to me, it's just another inexcusable mistake by Matt Eberflus. Like, it's just dumb.
Now here's the thing too, Swifty, and look, I guarantee I'm throwing shit at the wall here because I don't know the answer. But there's 50 seconds left at the end of that play, and they got a timeout. So my gut feeling is Brown wants to call a play, and Flus shuts it down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
that's what I thought too.
Where you talked before, like, okay, the play went over to the left side. I think he already has in his mind what he wants to do the next play. And then the coach shuts it down and the ball's not where it should be. Now,
overly cautious.
Did that have anything to do with the block? Not really. I mean, the block was really on the guards, getting pushed back a little bit. But still, I know he kicks a line drive over 50. 46, if you go look at all his 44, 45, 46-yard kicks, they're going through pretty high. He usually gets the ball up. I personally think he misstruck it a little bit.
Yep.
But I may be wrong on
that. That's what I thought as well. I think he's had some line drive kicks a little bit when it's 54 plus, but he usually tries to get more air under his kicks. And sometimes I just think you're not perfect when you kick every time. Sometimes you're not going to strike the ball perfectly. But the biggest thing to me is just another failure from Eberflus. How do you not know that? Someone in the chat asked, shouldn't that be the special teams coach decision? But no,
yes, it's part of it is. But and now the special teams coach, Hightower, could have got overruled by the head coach.
Yeah, and that's where it comes down to who's calling the plays. Who called that run play? And who has the final decision? It's Matt Eberflus. He's said it over and over that he has the final decision. And we all know that he's overly cautious and he likes to play it safe. So to me, I feel like that was another thing on Eberflus because he said it in the post game and after in the pressers. Those yards didn't matter, he said. If we make the field goal, the yards, sorry, Flus, but those yards did matter.
Sure, it does.
We needed those yards.
Every yard matters in a field goal. It makes the percentage of the kick be that much higher.
Mm-hmm.
We can second guess all we want. Not going to change the outcome of the game. You notice they put in a thing to the league for saying they thought there was a penalty on it. They never announced. Now, he might on his presser today what the league said, but according to Manley, Manley did not feel there was a penalty. And he was a snapper for 16, 17 years in the league, and he knows the rules as well as anybody.
I believe him over Flus, yeah.
Yeah, so because we brought it up to him, both Aldo and I, and he said, you know what? He goes, I see where that's coming from. He goes, but what's got to happen for it to be a penalty? And then he explained the whole thing, and he goes, and we had a close-up.
I'll have to watch it. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and he said, I don't see the penalty.
Okay, yeah, because the only thing I think it was Pat McAfee had it on one of his segments where he was saying it was should be a penalty, and that's where it went all around all social media and everybody was commenting about it. Where was the penalty? And we do get screwed out of a lot of penalties. That's something I think Bears fans are used to by now, but I didn't want to blame it on that. If we make the kick, we make it, but I'm still more mad about Eberflus, but I kind of want to switch it up. The guy I want to talk about.
One other thing, though.
Go ahead.
Here's the thing. We're in a catch-22. Probably the majority of us want a coaching change, but we also want the team to win. Well, if they win, you might not get a change.
Yep.
Now, if they only win 2 more games for the rest of the year, yeah, there'll be a change. But let's say they will go 5-2. I mean, just hypothetically. Not impossible. So now they got their 9 wins. Does he stay or go?
I say get rid of him. I mean, honestly.
Well, I know what you say, but what's reality?
It's tough, and that's where it's kind of. I'm kind of to the point now with all we've seen, and the amount of just historical losses and meltdowns that Eberflus has had, and even the comments from the players in the locker room, I feel like he's lost the locker room at least to some degree, and it's time to get a really great football mind in here as a head coach. We need one of these young guys that's going to be great. Do you see everyone in our division has at least 2 out of the 3. I'm not completely sold on Dan Campbell, but we'll see what happens when they lose Ben Johnson. But I mean, we need a guy like a Matt LaFleur or a Kevin O'Connell. We need a good young offensive mind in here. It could be defensive, it could be offensive.
On the offensive minded part. And somebody said, well, if you hire a defensive coach and he hires a good offensive coordinator, you're going to lose a coordinator. I don't buy that. To me, it's get the best leader to be your head coach who can put together a good staff. And if it's an offensive man, great. If it's a defensive man, great. I mean, look at Buffalo with McDermott. They've been to the playoffs 8 years in a row. And he wasn't looked at as a home run hire when they hired him. But yet they consistently got a good team year after year after year.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's kind of
Brian Flores would be a good candidate. Brian Flores, I'll say it right now, and I said it on my show, and if I was still writing, I'd write about it. You're never going to be a coach again in the head coach again in the national.
You don't think so? Oh, okay.
No. He's got the lawsuit going, but there's a lot of stuff that has never come out. And once this thing goes to court, then a lot of the stuff will come out. And people in the league know about it. It's just not public knowledge. And I'll touch on a few things. I know a guy who got offered the OC job there.
Yeah.
And, he was thinking, oh, I'll take this job. This could be a pretty good job. Goes into the interviews. The interview was good, but he goes, he wants to do his own research. And he says, I'm going to call some of their coaches, and call the guy who had the job, who retired, he didn't get fired or anything like that. So he calls it, and the guy says, don't take it. The guy is crazy. He's a micromanager. He will not let you do anything you want to do.
The Vikings GM, or
no? This was when he was at Miami.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so this was when Flores was the head coach at Miami. Chris Greer, who I've known for a long time, really a good guy, very competent GM. relationship, was like War of the Roses. Remember that movie?
Yeah, War of the
Yeah.
Roses. Yep.
But Flores just tried to constantly bully him to get what he wanted. They finally had to get rid of him. There's just a lot of stuff that because of that, he just, the situation's there and people just aren't going to hire him in that situation. Put him on one side of the ball. You got a head coach above him. He doesn't have too much control. He can run one side of the ball and that's not going to be an issue. But I just can't see him ever being a head coach again. Put it this way, at least not for 10 years or something like that.
Yeah, for me, it's just, I mean, you can see that. I mean, the argument I made for Flus was the same one you made for McDermott. A great defensive head coach can still get it done. Even D'Amico Ryans is doing it. But you risk losing that offensive coordinator. We'll talk about it for a second because that's something you deal with when you get there. A lot of times the offensive coordinator can teach guys, and when he leaves, other people can step up. But the problem is when you look around the NFL, the teams that are winning consistently and winning in the playoffs, the 49ers, the Chiefs, you look at the top team, even the Packers with Matt LaFleur.
I'll argue 1 point with you on the Chiefs.
Andy
Reid was never a coordinator in his life.
You don't have to be a coordinator. I mean, that's
the thing. He was an offensive line coach.
But that's the thing. It's about getting one of these head coaches that call plays and are one of the best in the league, because that's kind of how this league is going to me. It's going to more of an offensive league. And yes, defense is coming back a little bit. But what I've learned when you look around is you can find defensive coordinators, especially if you have a young quarterback and a team that can win and a head coach that is good at calling plays on offense. Because you look at those guys, the Sean McVays, the Kyle Shanahans, the Matt LaFleurs, the Andy Reids, they find defensive coordinators. And a lot of times those guys even find D coordinators that stick around for a while because they want to be there and win. I mean, the Chiefs, they've had Spagnuolo for how long? He's not sniffing any head coaching jobs.
He was already a head coach and he failed as a head coach.
But now he's just staying there. Yeah, just staying though. I mean, to me, I think offense is the future. I think the league is more offensive oriented, and I want to get a Ben Johnson or a Bobby Slowick, or you can even throw Cliff Kingsbury in there, a guy who's done a great job in Washington.
Kingsbury failed as a
I'm not a huge
head
fan,
coach in 2 spots now.
Just one in the NFL, right? The Cardinals?
One in the NFL, but he had the greatest quarterback in football, and Patrick Mahomes, and he couldn't win.
And Texas Tech, yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, but Texas.
And we're talking the Big 12 that plays no defense.
Are you ever going to out recruit people at Texas Tech though? I mean, it's tough. I mean, college is.
Yeah, but you got the guy. He had the guy throwing the pill.
I mean, he got it done though. I do not want another Matt Nagy. I mean, that's
well. Now you're arguing with yourself. I love this conversation.
I do too, because this is where it's tough and this is where it's hard. The difference with Nagy, the guys I mentioned, every one of them have called plays successfully in the NFL and worked with young quarterbacks. Nagy never called plays in the NFL. So no, it's not the same. Nagy was an experiment. He had worked with Mahomes and he did come from the Chiefs, but he wasn't calling plays. Andy Reid was. So to me, he was a fraud.
He called plays that last year he was with the Chiefs.
For like 2 games or
the last 3 games of the season and the playoffs. Yeah. And the playoffs.
And it was just to try to get him that extensive. But at the same time, he was calling plays from Andy Reid's playbook. It's not like they ran a completely new offense or anything there. So, but to me, I want one of those. When you look at Ben Johnson or you look at Bobby Slowick, those are the 2 biggest names going around right now. And my biggest question to them is what you said. Are they great leaders of men? Because we know they can call plays.
That's the key. It's not the side of the ball. It's if it's an offensive guy, fine. What I'm not saying is don't hire an offensive guy. I'm saying hiring the best guy. Ben Johnson is a excellent play caller, offensive technician.
Innovative. He's mixing things up.
Right.
I don't know anything about how he is.
No question about that. and I like the way he comes across. I've listened to a couple of his pressers just to try to get a feel for his personality. I like the way he comes across. But can he run a whole football team? And
that's the biggest question.
Can he take over a whole room and control a whole football team? And that's the key. It's not an easy decision for any general manager to make. It's a very tough decision, which brings us to the guy I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
Thomas Brown.
There we go.
And who now I've talked to, two people, because Pat Manley brought it up on Monday. And a friend of mine who works with the Rams has worked with Thomas Brown. There's nobody in the Rams building doesn't love Thomas Brown. And what Manley brought up is that McVay leaned on him because the players really respect Brown, being that he's a former player himself and that he's got such a rapport with players and they respect him so much. He's got a good feeling for who each player is, meaning Brown does.
Yeah.
So he's only in LA for a year. Now he was an offensive coordinator at the University of Miami for a couple of years. Then I think he was at South Carolina 1 year because he was under Mark Richt at Miami. Richt got fired, went to South Carolina for 1 year, and then went to the Rams as the running back coach. After 1 year, he becomes the assistant head coach and the running back coach. And McVay
he had those
really
3 years. Well, he had those 3 years of calling plays in Miami, and then he went to the South Carolina for the 1 year, and then the Rams running back coach 1 year, and then assistant head coach.
Well, he was at the Rams a total of 3 seasons.
Yep.
But now here's one of the key things. Now again, he was made the assistant head coach, which was a big thing. And again, that was the respect McVay had for him and the way he could that Brown deals with people. But here's the story that's never been out that I was told from a guy at the Rams. So his final year at the Rams, they brought in a new coach to coach the running backs because they wanted to give Thomas a chance to coach another position just to get a feel for another position to help him because his goal is to be a head coach.
Yep.
So he goes to the tight end room. Well, the guy they hired as the running back coach wasn't working out. So they had to put Thomas back in the running back room. And my buddy says the room was a mess. They weren't getting any production out of the running backs. He's back there like 1 week, and everything was different.
Yeah,
just like with the Bears last week. Now it comes in. What he is he's old school, and he's no nonsense. Doesn't take any bullshit. And if you listen to him, he controls the room. He controls the conversation.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That's the note I had here is he's a guy when he comes in the room, like he demands people's attention and he commands the room. And I actually have the graphic here. This is his background for anybody who didn't catch it all on while we talked. He was a 6th-round pick by the Falcons out of Georgia. He was actually Georgia's 5th all-time leading rusher when he left school. Bounced around a little bit as a running backs coach and then spent 3 years calling plays for Miami, moved up and came to the Rams in the NFL. And it was only 1 year before he became the assistant head coach directly underneath Sean McVay. So that really tells you how much the Rams respected him. And he's a guy you can tell. We saw him last week. My biggest takeaway was he was cool, calm, and collected in the booth. And you saw when we scored a touchdown, he was like, "Let's go!" He's up there jumping up and down.
He got excited.
I loved it. I loved what I saw from him, and I thought our offense responded and showed that they wanted to play for this guy.
Now, Waldron and Brown work together in LA.
Yep.
The playbook's the same. It's like I said, with Getsy last year. It's pretty much the same playbook as last year. It's how you use the playbook. And you can make little.
and how you use your personnel. The biggest thing
That's
to
right.
me, using Swift and Roshan correctly. That was something that I don't know why Waldron hadn't done it, but he ran Swift to the outside. He got Swift the ball on the outside in the passing game, and he ran Roshan up the middle. Now, he did run Swift a couple times up the middle, and I seen people in chat, Swift, you said it's like you still have to do it occasionally. You can't show your hand completely to the defense, and every time Swift's in, you run outside. You can't do that. But he did use the players to their strengths more and got our skill position players involved. Early and often, the ball was in DJ Moore's hands. He got Cole Kmet involved. He got Romo Dunze targets.
He got Caleb getting the ball out of his hand real quick because he put in, instead of having these slow developing plays, he put in the quick plays.
Bang, bang. That's the biggest one right there.
And
quickest in the NFL last week.
Now here's the thing that part of the success he had was there's nothing on film of Thomas Brown calling plays for the Bears. So that was advantage Bears going into that game. Now you got one game. And they had a lot of success last week with the RPO and Caleb running. How long do you think that's going to last?
I think long. Well, but it's huge though. What it did is it's going to open up our running game. It was a simple thing that's been a staple in our offense for years. And just taking that mesh point out has allowed defensive ends to just crash hard all the time because there was no threat of Caleb keeping the ball. You do that now.
But the other thing you do, Swifty, is you can do pass off of that.
Yeah, the RPO, the run pass options. Exactly.
Right. You could do pass off of that. And so just the fact that he ran, that opens up another venue for basically the same play. And so where they could theoretically, because they've seen it on tape now, try to take, they'll be looking for it. Minnesota will be looking for it, so they'll try to take it away. But now you
either hand it off to someone up the middle, or you pull the ball out and throw a quick slant over the middle.
Absolutely.
That's going to be beautiful. And we saw that implemented more last week. We saw some slants over the middle. We saw Romo Dunze going over the middle, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore. They all had those quick breaking routes that you mentioned. When one of the hardest things to look at when I was watching tape earlier, and almost everybody that broke down tape saw it, Caleb would get to the back of his drop. He hits the back of his drop, and you pause the tape, and no receiver is open. And it's not that guys aren't getting open. It's they were running routes where it wasn't designed to be open yet. And to me, there's no rhythm in the offense when you do that. If your quarterback's hitting the back of his drop and there's nothing he can throw at that point, what are you doing? He's supposed to just hit the back of his drop and just wait. I just thought it was weird, and it showed our offense was just completely out of sync. And I think Thomas Brown just gets it. I don't know what it was with Waldron, but he didn't seem to get it. There was something.
But here's the whole point I'm trying to get to. And people may say, Gabriel, you're a dumb asshole. You don't know what you're talking about, and that's fine. If, in fact, they've made the decision already in their mind that this is Flus's last year, he's done, why not make Thomas Brown the interim head coach? Hey. You got, 7 games left? Find out if he's got it.
I mean, honestly,
maybe you got a head coach sitting right there.
We've talked a lot about.
The only way you're going to find out is to let him do it.
Exact. I'm 100% with you. And we've talked a lot about, is there someone else on the staff who can do it? And we know the Bears have never done it. They've never fired a coach mid-season. But to me, we've seen enough from Eberflus, and it seems to me like he's lost this locker room. So it doesn't even have to be Thomas Brown, but I'm with you 100% on that. Thomas Brown has already shown you what he can do for this offense. I don't know if I want to put that much on his plate too quick, but I'm with you hey, if we're getting rid of Flus, why not see if this guy, if he has it, give him the team, give him a chance.
What do you got to lose besides nothing?
I agree with that. I'm with that. And especially and I think Flus should be gone. What is your feeling on Flus? Do you think he still has a chance to remain the head coach next year? Or do you think?
No, I don't. And after the Washington game, I was starting to, go downhill. Having sat in that building, sat in there when people are crying for people's, the media and fans are crying for people's jobs. I'm very sensitive to that because I've been on the other side, and how it affects families, the families of coaches, the kids of coaches, those things. Fans, they want blood. I get it, but there's the human element side, and I've been part of that. So
I get it.
And Pat talked about it too. He goes, I never want to call for anybody's job because we've been in the business. We know what it's like to go through that shit. And so, I'm sensitive to it, but at the same time, you got to know, like somebody said, well, who do you got as potential head coaches? I said, well, I got names, but I'm not naming them until the job's open.
Yeah.
It's just not fair.
I get it. And it's tough. And to me, it's like, I've been rooting for Eberflus this whole time. I think he's a good guy. I love how he scouts players, and I think he's done a lot for this locker room. He's helped build the foundation here. But at the end of the day, there's just been too many heartbreaking losses that I don't know if you can ever recover from all those meltdowns. And to me, I think we got to get a new head coach. My biggest worry right now is this team. I still root for us to win every week, no matter what. But if we get hot down the stretch and win 5 games, still finish just out of the playoffs, but somehow finish hot, could Flus keep his job? And that scares me.
To me, that's the magic. 9 wins is the magic number.
You think
9 wins is a winning season. 8 wins is a losing season. And so it's like, that's where I said it, a few minutes ago, we're in a catch-22, in that you want the team to win, but you want to change, and you're not going to get a change unless they lose. Now, I'll be honest with you. I thought after that loss on Sunday, there was going to be a change on Monday, and yet there was no change. I know people say they haven't made a change ever with the Bears. Well, you got, for 20-something years before that, you had Ted Phillips as the president. And now you've got a different guy as president. Also, for most of the time when Ted was there, you had Mike McCaskey as the CEO.
True.
Mike's gone.
That's
now you got George
point there.
So you got different people running the show, and so who's to say? Don't forget. I mean, Ryan's got to fight for his job too. And
that's what I was gonna get to next, because someone in the chat mentioned it, and I did want to discuss Ryan Poles, because I'm not out on Ryan Poles. All these people,
I'm not either. But the thing is does he hang on to Poles too long that it hurts him?
Who? Kevin Warren?
No, does Ryan Poles, or rather,
hang on to Flus? Hang on to
Flus too long that it hurts him. That it hurts himself.
Yeah, that's where I'm with it. To me, that's his biggest thing right now, is he's going to have to cut ties with Eberflus at the end of the season, because if not, then it is starting to become an indictment on Ryan Poles that, hey, you're letting this head coach go out there. And right now, all these losses, I'm putting them on Eberflus, because we had the talent on the roster to win these games. We've had these games won, and it's been epic, horrendous collapses and stupid coaching decisions are the reasons we lost, not because of the talent Ryan Poles has out there. Now, I get it. He does need to do more to this offensive line, but I've said it over and over and given so many examples that you don't build an offensive line overnight. You have to draft and develop guys. And
well, you're gonna have to get one veteran and probably draft a guy or two.
Yep.
In this draft, but you're gonna probably, and it depends on how much money you got to spend, what position it's going to be. I mean, in fairness, they thought that was Nate Davis. It was a mistake. Problem with Nate Davis wasn't talent. Nate Davis got the money and said, "Fuck it." no football character. But that's on Ryan Poles and Ryan Poles' group, not doing or not knowing that the football character of Nate Davis was below the line, not knowing that the football character of the wide receiver was below the line.
Chase Claypool, yeah.
Yes. So those are now he's made some really good trades, some good free agent signings, but he's had a couple bad ones. And one cost a second round pick, the other one cost a bunch of guaranteed dollars. Now you're never going to bat 1,000. I get that.
Nobody. Yeah.
But given the fact that there's been so many damn injuries to I've never seen a team in all the years I've been involved with this have this many injuries on the offensive line over a course of 2 to 3 years. It's like they're never healthy.
It's tough. And that's hard to field an offensive line when even the players you draft and bring in that are talented can't stay healthy. Tevin Jenkins can't stay healthy. Braxton Jones can't stay healthy anymore. Darnell Wright can't stay healthy anymore. Ryan Bates, who was good and healthy most of his career, hasn't been healthy
never got
for a
hurt
minute.
In Buffalo.
Yeah.
It's like what's in the water? What's in the water at Hallis Hall that guys get hurt?
It's tough and it's hard to, but that's the biggest factor is you can't just have an offensive line overnight fix it. Like you look at the Bengals. The Bengals have tried to do that. They went to the Super Bowl a couple years ago, and they've tried to build that offensive line strictly through free agency. The one guy they drafted, the left tackle a few years back, he's gone now. They have Orlando Brown, who was signed in free agency. They have all their guys on the inside were signed in free agency. So when they've spent almost $250 million on that offensive line, and it's not ranked in the top 20 of the NFL. So to me, you don't do it. You don't do it in free agency. You can bring in one guy and try to patch holes. The Chiefs do that. Good teams do that, but you don't build an entire line through free agency. So it's all about putting a lot of resources from this next year's draft and maybe finding one good player in free agency and fixing this O-line. And that's how we turn this franchise around. And the ball's in Ryan Poles' court for that. But what he's done so far as a GM, I think he has at least 2 to 3 more years of free reign if I'm Kevin Warren. I think Poles is doing a great job.
No, I agree with you. But I'm just saying that you don't forget, Kevin Warren did not hire Ryan Poles. True. Ryan Poles came before Kevin Warren. Mm-hmm. So you've got that part of the equation that we don't know the answer to. But, going back to the Chiefs, you said they spent some money in free agency, and they took that big tackle from Jacksonville, gave him a ton of money, like $20 million a year. He stinks. He's probably the worst player on their offensive line.
And that was one of the guys, all the guys we could have signed. McGlinchey stinks. Jawan Taylor stinks.
They only wanted one. Brown. According to polls, they only wanted one guy out of that 3. And that was McGlinchey.
McGlinchey, okay, yeah. And he hasn't played well either. And
they were, and the story was that they were okay with paying him an average of 17.5 a year. They weren't okay when the guarantee got up too high. They walked away.
Slick said, "How did Jerry Angelo fix the O-line in 2 years?" And I was gonna say
free agency.
I don't know if now they did get some big hits there. I mean, Fred Miller was a guy who worked out. John Tate was a guy who worked out. And then Roberto Garza was a guy who worked out. Didn't have an ACL.
Ruben Brown.
He didn't have an ACL.
4/5 of that offensive line were free agents when we went to the Super Bowl.
It was. And I remember that the NFL has changed a bit. I would say nowadays teams are less likely to let good players get away in free agency. There's more flexibility with the salary cap nowadays since it's gotten a lot bigger. Teams can restructure and move things around. Back then, guys got cut. Guys like Ruben Brown is a guy who shouldn't have got cut, but he was old. He had a big contract. He got cut. The Bears made a smart decision bringing him in.
They had new people coming in Buffalo, and they wanted to get some younger people. Ruben was a perennial Pro Bowler.
Mhm.
Probably one of the the best guards
One of
of
the
his
best in the
time.
league at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was a tackle in college. Tackle in college that got moved. Real long arms, and a great guy. I've known Ruben a long, long time. He's just
Yep.
really a good person. And I'll tell you an interesting story because Ruben, when he was in Buffalo, he was the lead dog. He was the alpha dog. So comes here, and Owen's the lead dog. So we're talking like, okay, how's this one going to work out? You got two alphas, and there only can be one. And this is where you got to
we
get.
still had Olin, man.
This is where you got to give Ruben credit. Ruben knew it, and Olin and Ruben became really, really good friends. But Ruben kind of stepped aside, said, "This is your room. I'm the new guy."
Yep. 100. I mean, and I think Fred, and we'll maybe get into the Fred Miller thing because remember Olin broke Fred Miller's jaw. It took a little bit more to get into that, but to me, the biggest
But
signing of all
that was a
John
whole
Tate.
different story, and because we used to be able to go to the FBI shooting range, which is right next to the Great Lakes. It's almost like attached to the Great Lakes Naval Base. I had been there a few times shooting myself, and the FBI Midwest SWAT team is based right there, and that's where they train. And the security guy for the Bears at that time was retired FBI, and he used to run that SWAT team. So he was like, that was the end, how he got over there. So we used to go over there. I got a picture on, shooting a couple different guns. And this goes way back to like 2002, 2003, 2004. So this was, I think, the next year. And the players all went over there on a Tuesday. So what happened is they get done with the shooting. And then the FBI agents have a big barbecue for everybody. They did it for us. They did it for the players and stuff. And then they start drinking. And Fred and Olin both probably had a couple pops too many. And Fred's the one who started it, not Olin. Olin just finished it.
Yeah.
Fred hit Olin with a 10-pound weight over the head.
Ooh, you can kill someone that way.
Yeah, well, Olin did almost kill him with one punch and broke his jaw. So, but
fractured it.
What happened then is nobody ever went to the FBI range after that. That went all the way to Washington.
Oh, wow.
And that got shut down. That went to the head of the FBI. I mean, that was behind the scenes. That was a big deal. That civilians were right there, and they get a fight, and the guy breaks his jaw, and it was know what it was? It was the drinking.
Yeah, I get, and so I'll say my biggest question to you is that has been proven. We did build an O-line pretty much through free agency back when you were in it, but to me nowadays, if you just look around the NFL, it's much harder and less likely to happen if you try to build an O-line through free agency. More times than not, you're going to end up overpaying, putting your team in salary cap hell, and still not completely fixing your O-line. Do you just think it's something that's not as viable nowadays due to larger salary caps, smarter GMs, or what do you associate it to?
Part of it is, you had a salary structure for each position. The only guy who was really making money was the left tackle.
Yep.
Okay, as compared, not saying Olin was poor and didn't make any money, but the centers and the guards and the right tackle weren't making as much as the left tackle.
No,
and so you could get, and Ruben, being that he was 30-something years old, and it's like there weren't 20 teams trying to sign him. You got him at a good price.
Yeah. I think he was close to minimum. It was just a couple million, if I remember right, for Ruben.
Well, it was a lot more than minimum back then. But I mean, you had to pay him for his due. He multi-time Pro Bowler, but the guy was a good player. And on top of that, they had a good coach in Harry Hiestand. And, Harry worked, those guys all like playing for Harry, and Harry, just treated those guys a little bit different because he had a lot of respect for them. It was funny because he'd have meetings with those guys and you wouldn't hear Harry MF anybody or yell at anybody because he treated those guys with respect. Then he'd let those guys go. And then the young guys that were left, then he'd kill those guys after the vets left the room.
Yeah. A couple people were giving some examples of saying teams built O-lines in one season. The Commanders already had some good players on their O-line. The Chargers already had some good players on their O-line. Those are teams that more changed their offenses and changed things around. They didn't completely build an offensive line, especially in free agency during 1 year. But there are examples where signing one good player, like the Commanders did with Tyler Biotish, the center, can really help your offensive line.
Well, they brought in that guard. They brought in the backup guard from Kansas City too, who's been a really, and actually he's a Chicago player, Chicago kid. So they brought in him, and he started at one of the guard positions. So, and they had to replace. They had the former Bear at left tackle, and they had to replace
Charles
him.
Leno, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know who's playing left tackle there now,
But the biggest thing to me, if you want to give Ryan Poles a miss, not signing a big time center this year, and to me, that was the guy. Tyler Biotish was number one on my list. He was coming from Dallas. He was Wisconsin in college. I graded him out really high out of Wisconsin. He was tough, physical. I loved him as a center, but he has really helped Jaden Daniels in that offense. I think that's something that's overlooked a little bit, having that tough center. And Coleman Shelton's played well. To be fair, he's our only offensive lineman that's played every snap this year, but to me, he hasn't played anywhere near as well as Biotish has. So
no, but here's the thing: Shelton's not supposed to be the center. Bates is. They tried to sign Bates 2 years ago, and Buffalo matched the offer. So now Buffalo's in cap hell. They got to get rid of $45 million worth of salaries. So it was either cut or trade. So Poles called and said, "You want to give us Bates?" And Bates is supposed to be the center, and yet he's had some health problems that he never had in Buffalo. And so he hasn't played a down at center in the regular season when he's supposed to be the center. He's bigger, more stout, more athletic than Shelton.
Now I will say, I will say Shelton's played well though. Shelton is considering he's played well, but there is a guy, someone just brought him up in chat, that if he enters free agency could really help us, and that's the guard from the Chiefs, Trey Smith. Ryan Poles was there when they drafted him. He was in Kansas City. He was part of the team that brought him in, and all signs point to him potentially leaving via free agency due to the contract he wants. I've said all along the Chiefs weren't going to trade him because he was a big-time name. But do you know much about Trey Smith, and would you be a Chiefs fan?
I know he's a hell of a player, but right now when you look at the money guards are getting,
he's going to want
guards are getting tackle money.
He's going to want $100 million.
He's going to get. Well, I look at it at I don't look at the big dollar. I look at the average per year. He's going to want $20 million a year.
Yep. And I mean, I think right now, to me, if he hits the market, we can afford it. We've already cut Nate Davis. He's gone. Nate's going to be gone.
Yeah, Nate Davis is costing you $2 million next year.
Yep, and we're saving the $9 million that we would have been paying him. And Tevin Jenkins is a free agent.
You know they're not going to re-sign Tevin.
And that's what I'm saying. That's my next point is I don't feel like we're giving money to Tev. That opens up.
I think they're going to let him walk because
big pot of money for a guard.
He wouldn't cost as much as the guy from Kansas City, but Tev is yet to play a full season. 4 years in the league. He's been hurt. This year, he's only missed one game, one start. But when you add up the time he's missed, it's closer to 4 games this year. There's games he's gotten hurt in the first quarter, hadn't finished the games.
Yep, twice.
It's 3.5 to 4 games that he's missed this year. So he's yet to play a 17-game season. and I don't see how you can give him a new contract when he's that unreliable.
Yeah, I get, and I'd love. my hope is we could spend big money for a guard and then still somehow find a way to maybe bring Tev back on a 1 year or 2 year short term prove it type deal where we're not giving him a bunch of guaranteed money. But
I'm
I
gonna
love Kevin Jenkins. I
no,
do, but
I know
I'm
what you're
with
saying,
you.
but the guy I like, and he only got to play a little more than a
Oh, Bill
half, and then
Murray.
he got a Murray is a motherfucker now.
Yeah, Bill Murray looked good in his limited time out here, man.
Well, he played really good in the preseason. That's when
Yeah.
I kind of noticed. I go, who's this guy? And then you look at his background, and he was a defensive lineman in college, undersized, like a defensive line, but he was athletic. He ran like a 4.9, jumped over 30 inches. He had the explosiveness. Bench press was really high, but New England got him and said they had him at defensive tackle. He wasn't good enough.
And it was
He
Bill
went to,
Belichick who moved him.
yeah, moved
So,
him to guard, and then tried to hide him on the practice squad. But he had looked decent, and that's where the Bears grabbed him when they tried to. They waived him to put him on the practice squad, and then the Bears sold him on. Well, they cut you now twice because he was on the practice squad as a defensive lineman the first year. He said, they've cut you twice, so why don't you come here?
and we gave him a shot, and we like him. I mean, I could tell the coaching staff likes him. I wish he would have stayed healthy because he was finally getting his chance. Mikey had a question about Ryan Bates, though. With his concussion, considering the arthritis in his shoulder, and he has $0 guaranteed dollars next year, he would save us $4 to $5 million if we cut him. Do you think
$4 million if you cut him? I mean, that's going to be a it's going to be a two-part decision. Front office decision, and if you got a new coaching staff and a different offensive line coach, that coach is going to have a say in it too.
Yep, 100%. Yep, and someone is making a comment about Ian Wheeler. He is a good story. Anyone who doesn't remember Ian Wheeler, the running back, hoping he comes back next year.
Khalil Hilbert wasn't going to be on this team until that guy got hurt.
Yep, 100%. And then I'll go with what Brandon said here. I want us to invest in the trenches this offseason no matter what. Now, I keep saying offensive line, but if you go defensive line with the first round pick and then you take 2 interior linemen with the second, you got 2 second-round picks, or you go with the tackle and the guard.
Not too many guards go in the first round.
Yeah, exactly. So you have I'm with that. Unless you take a tackle in the first round, you're probably going to go D-line anyway. So you can go D-line, but then when we get to day 2, 2 picks in the second round, 1 in the third, I want that offensive line addressed.
You might have 2 in the third if things go right.
Oh, yeah. Hey, that's a good point. If Ian Cunningham leaves, 2 picks in the second, 2 in the third, that's a real chance to help the interior of this O-line. So I love it. That's what I'm looking forward to this offseason.
There's some guys I like. There's a player, I mentioned him on GTF the other day. Might have been the week before. If you get a chance to watch Michigan State, in fact, they're playing tonight.
Oh, they're playing tonight? Okay.
Playing tonight. I think it's tonight. Number 70, the left guard. His name is Luke Newsom.
Oh, yep. Okay.
Okay, here's the story. 4-year starter at Holy Cross at tackle. Now he's a graduate transfer to Michigan State. They move him into guard because he's 6'4", weighed 6'4", 6'3 and a half, something like that. I got the exact measurement somewhere. And he was 301 in the spring. Now he's like 314. This is very athletic, nasty, strong. Took him a couple games to get used to playing guard, moving inside to guard from playing outside of tackle. One of the better guards I've seen, a more consistent guard. But when I'm first looking at him, I'm thinking, guy can really be good at guard. He might be great at center. I'm always trying to look at guys who could be possible centers. A lot of your good centers were never centers in college. And so, I looked at that too, because he's making, even though he's playing guard, he's making the line calls from the guard position, and he never played guard until this year.
Yeah, I really like the USC center, the guy who played guard the last couple of years with.
He's had a
Caleb
bunch of
Williams,
injuries.
Jonah Monheim. Someone did ask, how is that Fields 4th rounder looking? I'm just gonna say it's looking like a 6th rounder right now.
Right now, it's looking like a 6th rounder. Well, I'll tell you what. Now, Wilson wasn't that good yesterday.
He wasn't, but
they played in a snowstorm, so
yeah, still looking like a 6th rounder. What are your thoughts on? Okay, so there were some comments about because of last night's game, and it was a good game. Apparently, I didn't watch all of it actually. But
I only watched a little bit of it, and then I saw the last.
People were talking about because of the snow, though, like that's an argument to not have a dome in Chicago. What are your thoughts on that? I want the dome still, to be honest. I do.
Oh, I do too. It just makes the
snow
elements
games are fun.
The elements, you think it's an advantage, and it can be an advantage, but there's also a degree of luck involved in playing in the elements. Now, Pep Hamilton, who is one of my good friends, was here. Pep told me a story, and I might have mentioned it. And this is when he was before he came here. So he was on Ron Turner's staff as the quarterback coach. But before that, he was out in San Francisco. And he said that they had a game plan all set. San Francisco is coming here. And they get here, and it's a real windy November day. And it's like, so they get out on the field for the warm-ups, and like they couldn't throw the ball. I mean, they couldn't do anything. And it's like, what the hell are we going to do? He said, they had it totally in between the warm-ups and the opening kickoff, which is like 15 minutes. They had to totally revamp the game plan because of the weather conditions. Because it wasn't, they look at that stuff in advance, but it was a lot worse than it was. And what Pep said, and this made a lot of stuff because he's coached in Cleveland. He said the 2 hardest stadiums to play in the league are Soldier Field and Cleveland. He said because both of them sit on the lake. He goes, Buffalo is cold, man. Buffalo is 6 miles from the lake. So you get the snow at the Buffalo Stadium, but you don't get that lake effect that you get in Soldier Field and in Cleveland. It made a lot of sense to me. He says it just makes things really difficult. The effect the water itself can have on what's going on inside the stadium.
It's awful for both teams, and it's one reason I think it's been a part of why we haven't had a 4,000-yard passer.
No question. Caleb, the first game they played a game, and he almost threw might have been the second home game.
Yep.
He almost threw an interception on the first pass because it was all the wind.
Yep.
And he said it took me a couple series to get used to throwing in this wind.
It happens, man. And it's not like it's predictable wind and it's the same every time. But yeah, that's a huge factor. I will switch up. A lot of questions about the safety position. I did want to touch on this quickly. A lot of people are saying with Brisker's health issues, should we be drafting a safety?
Yeah, but you can get a safety. You get a safety on day 2 or day 3. That's a good safety.
I was go. And someone else asked about Malachi Starks, the Georgia safety. What do you think about him? To me, I
really like him.
I really like him. The problem is I do not see us investing early in a safety. Just like you said, I think it's something we still have Brisker next year.
It's not a premium position.
Yep. And if you look around NFL free agency, the market for safety just keeps getting more and more team friendly. You had Justin Simmons, who was a 3-time Pro Bowler and only 26 or 27. I don't know how old he is, but he's not close to 30.
The only guy who got money was Xavier McKinney in Green Bay.
Yep. And everyone else just set on free agency and got pretty much nothing. Right. And you look at other guys like Tremaine Edmonds' brother, Terrell Edmonds, who isn't a superstar by any means, but he was an average safety in the NFL. He's just sitting there as a free agent right now. To me, the safety market, you can sign a safety in free agency and draft one in the 3rd or 4th round. and we're fine. We don't have to replace Brisker with a first-round pick. Plus, if
Hicks, the
Brisker's
guy who's
healthy,
playing
we're fine
safety
anyway.
now, is like a 6th or 7th.
Yep. So to me, I'm
Okay,
not worried
and
about safety yet.
yeah, no, there's a lot of good safeties. You know, you're unless a guy's really special, he's got to be real special to go in the first or second round. After that, they drop because it's just the value of the position. So you can get a good one later in the draft because people want to take linemen, offensive and defensive linemen. They're taking the value positions, and they don't want to take a running back in the first round, but you want to take them in the second and third. You know, and that pushes safeties down.
Yeah, 100%. And to me, I just don't think the market for safety is worth investing right now. I do think
No.
we could use another good safety once Kevin Byard has another year or two left in him, but I'm not giving up on
4th round
Brisker.
pick, I believe.
Yeah,
Might have been a 3rd, but I think it was a 4th.
And I'm not giving up on Brisker either. I think Brisker has the potential to be one of the best young safeties in the league. The concussion problems are worrisome, but he has another year on his contract before we have to pay him. So let's see how
scares
things
me,
shake
Swift.
out.
What scares me, Swifty, about him is he went 5 weeks and then they had to put him on IR because he still hadn't cleared.
That's scary to me. Yeah, I agree.
That's the scary part. And I've had 6 verified concussions when I was playing, and twice I got, actually the first 2 I got were, I got hit in such a way that, you go through that amnesia type state for about 15, 20 minutes where you just can't remember something from 1 second to the next.
Ooh.
But back then, I mean, we're talking, my first concussion was in 1965. And so I was a freshman in high school.
Oh, man.
And, they treated him differently. It's like, I didn't miss any school. I was at school the next day. I had my first 3 concussions were in like a 14-month period.
Ooh.
But again, nobody thought about it. And when all this stuff started coming up a few years ago, my doctor is the Bears internist. And I finally went to him. I said, hey, is this something I should be worried about? I said, I had 6 that I know of. I might have had more, but I know I had 6. And he goes, when's the last time you had one? And 40 years ago or something like that. He goes, you're all right now. Don't worry about
it. You're fine. Don't worry about it. Yeah, that's fine. And then we got one more thing I want to ask because I got a couple comments on this. We got a couple people in the chat not liking our 4th round pick, our punter, saying Tory Taylor wasn't worth it. I'm going to go completely against that and be like, I still am a huge fan of Tory Taylor. Like all rookies, you got to give him a little bit of time to get adjusted to the NFL, but he's already showed his potential.
And you got to get adjusted to Soldier Field this late in the year, too.
That win, too, yeah. It's going to be his first time playing here.
That's tough.
Yeah, it is. It's 100%. But, yeah, Greg, I think we're about wrapped up then. We're over an hour. Do you have any final thoughts or anything for the chat?
I got a good feeling on this one, and I shouldn't.
For this week's game?
But I do. I got a good feeling on this game.
I feel better about it. I had a good feeling for last week's game. I do think this is a winnable game. I don't know. I want us to win. I always want us to win. But at the end of the day, it's like, are we rooting for Eberflus to somehow keep his job right now? But I do want us to win. I want Thomas Brown and Caleb Williams to shut up some of the haters and the media.
Here's the key. If the defense plays flat and they come out flat, it's all over for Flus. That, because the key is, do they play hard? Well, they played hard last week. You got to give them that. I didn't see the effort the week before. Now, part of it might have been home game, playing Green Bay. But if they look like they did against New England tomorrow, to me, it's all over. You gotta cut the cord.
And I'll agree with that. And I think you made a great point on it earlier. Kevin Warren, I've thought all along, look, we're not firing our head coach. I think maybe we should midseason, but Kevin Warren could be the man to make that change. If we do come out flat again this week, like you said, that is something to keep an eye on. Maybe it could actually happen. So if this team doesn't play well this week, we have something to look forward to. But I do think we can win this game. The Vikings are not an unbeatable team. We can beat these guys. So
No, they got
Greg,
brought down. They had that quick start and they got brought back down to earth.
yep, and they're a beatable team. Sam Darnold is good. They have a lot of weapons. They have a good defense, but they're not unbeatable. This is a team we can beat. We showed off with how well we played against the Packers last week. This is a team we could beat if we play our football game.
How about that? They had a 36-minute to 24-minute time of possession advantage over the Packers. You should win every game. You have an advantage like that.
It's tough, man. It's tough. That interception in the red zone, T. Smitty, that was probably the biggest one of the game. But yeah, I'm excited. I think we can win this week. Appreciate everybody in the chat. You guys hit the like button. Greg, thanks again for coming on, man.
Okay,
and bear
buddy.
down. We'll catch you again in 2 weeks. Hopefully,
Yep.
we'll be talking about some wins. Hopefully.